Welcome everyone to today's LinkedIn Live. I am here with Alexis Frank. I'm so excited to be doing this with her. And we are here to talk about how to stop people pleasing and let amazing, healthy connections and relationships into your life. Alexis and I were talking a few weeks ago, and this just naturally came up in our conversation. And we knew it was the right thing to go for because so many of the people in our coaching programs struggle with finding the right people, with knowing who their people are, being able to practice boundaries and do it without guilt and fear. So excited to be here. Alexis, please introduce yourself.
Yes. So I am Alexis. I am the founder of the Filing Cabinet, and I help women and eldest or only daughters ruthlessly and unapologetically choose themselves in life, business, and motherhood. And I love the work that I do.
Amazing. And I am Lori Potch. For those of you who do not know me, I am a career and confidence coach. I also do public speaking coaching and corporate training, teaching people to build their confidence, communicate confidence when they may not be making the impact that they intend. So a lot of the time we might feel really confident, but if we're not projecting that, then we're not going to get where we really want to go. So both of those things are super important, and I love teaching those principles. And one of the key principles in confidence is practicing boundaries. Like, you will not see hyper successful people not setting boundaries, right?
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
you,
Yes.
like those people, you can think of Taylor Swift, like with the media, or, that's just the what immediately comes to mind because I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. But she's like, no, this song isn't about who it's so and so. This song isn't about so and so. It's just about this topic overall. And they're like, keep pushing, and she just keeps saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So you'll always recognize that the people you admire are usually the people who have solid boundaries. 100%.
I completely agree. It's so funny because I hopped off my group coaching call right onto this one. And the last thing I was talking to one of my clients about was her lack of boundaries. She was like, "Oh, I just facilitated this event because, it's like for my mom's friend." And I was like,
You disagree?
I know. That's why I was like, is there paid opportunities? And she was talking about this person that she follows and how he has built this entire journaling empire. And he has this exclusivity kind of thing about him. Like, you can barely get to him. And I'm like, you think he's doing free events? You think he's not? And I'm like, he's created a boundary, he's establishing a boundary. And I'm like, you got to start somewhere. And if you're going to make yourself happy and you're really going to lean into things that you want, boundaries 101.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who are just joining us, I am Lori Potts. I have Alexis Frank here with me. We are both coaches for women, helping them build their confidence, set boundaries, get where they really want to go in life. And if you have any questions for us, please pop them in the comments and we will answer them live. I love doing that. And any comments that you have too that you want to share, insights that have helped you to set boundaries and have healthy relationships, all of those things, pop them in the comments and we will highlight them and talk about them here. So thank you everyone who is joining us. We're so excited to be here. So let's dive in to like the how of this. I really find that a lot of people love those practical tips for my LinkedIn lives. So like how to start recognizing when you're people pleasing in the first place, or like prepare for those conversations,
Yeah.
identifying the right people who you want in your life, what that looks
Mhm.
like. So then you're not accidentally introducing people who aren't going to honor boundaries. It's so much easier when you like are able to establish those relationships and you can recognize the red flags and green flags,
Yeah.
and then setting those boundaries like without guilt or fear, or if you do feel guilt and fear, like not letting them control your actions.
Yes, for sure. I would say that one way to, first of all, before you recognize that you're people pleasing, you have to acknowledge that it is something that you regularly partake in. Okay.
Mhm.
Because you can't live in denial city and think that anything is going to change. Okay.
Mhm.
You can't run around saying, "Oh, well, I'm not a people pleaser." And then you literally do the exact opposite every single time somebody asks you to do something.
Yeah.
So you have to first acknowledge, as they say, is like the first step is to admit that you have a problem. It's like with any other addiction. It's like you can get addicted to people pleasing because it gives you the satisfaction of knowing that people care about you,
Mm-hmm.
or
They
that,
approve of you. They approve
yeah,
of your action.
because approving of you and caring about you are two entirely different things, right?
Yeah.
So when, like, how to recognize that you're people pleasing is, how do you feel? Because everything is energy, right?
Mm,
But, like, you just said yes to something when you were like unsure about it, or you
mhm.
wholeheartedly wanted to say no. That's people
Yeah.
pleasing, right?
Yep.
Like that. And I think that's the biggest thing is, where are you constantly saying yes, where you would have rather put a no? And that's
Right.
the simplest high level way to recognize how you people please is like, well, yeah, I said yes, or I just did this. And it's like, did that feel right in your soul? If
Yeah.
not,
Or is that in line with how you want to spend your time and energy?
yeah,
Yeah. One of
it's
my
like,
one of my favorite things to do is get people to when they ask you like, "Hey, can you come to this thing? Can you like commit to whatever it is?" "Oh, let me check my calendar and I'll get back to you." Like if they pressure you to look at your calendar right then, like you already know that
oh, yeah,
like, okay, this is already a no because I know at the event, which they'll probably be at,
yeah,
right? They're probably going to continue to cross boundaries and like
yeah,
let them look at their calendar at their time. And so that can really help and like you gives you time to make decision. And then
mhm,
it also tells a lot about the other person, the other party. If they're like, oh, well, yeah, what does your calendar look like right now? Right. So one of the things that I love teaching people is just like step back for a second, take a breath, identify and put your priorities in line with your values and what's really important and control your energy, what you're
yeah.
giving and partaking of.
Yeah. And I think another great question for you to ask yourself as you take that step back is, and you always want to ask yourself this as you're giving yourself time to reflect, is this supporting the life that I'm trying to create?
Yes.
And so it's like, by doing this thing, am I supporting what I really want? Or am I saying it because I want somebody to feel some kind of way about me?
Hmm.
Be honest with yourself. And
Am
if
I
you're
trying
like,
to get approval or is this going to serve my long-term goals?
yeah. And it's okay if you don't know. It's okay. This is
Right.
not, it's never black and white. It's never this like journey that just goes from one extreme to the next. There's going to be a ton of gray area. And simply recognizing that and being able to take a step back is progress in and of itself.
It is 100%. So one of the things that I love doing with people who struggle with conflict, like they're conflict avoidant, so they just always do whatever other people want, um, is having them like play through the scenario. So once they've identified, yes, I'm a people pleaser, and identified maybe like situations or people that they need to, really establish boundaries with, then writing down what you really want out
Yeah.
of the situation beforehand. And then, you know, you can probably generally know based on the situation that you will be going into how that person will act, the other parties in the situation will act, what they'll expect. And so practicing that, doing like mock negotiation or,
Yeah.
mock conversations can help you feel a lot more confident going into that. And then visualization is super
Yeah.
powerful as well, like getting what you want and visualizing them being okay with it,
Yeah.
right? Or even if they aren't okay with it, you still walking away feeling calm, collected, and know that you protected yourself, you protected your energy.
Yeah, and for me, I take it, I can be a little extreme. I love a good catastrophe. And so I used to see catastrophizing things as a negative, but I
Mhm.
actually kind of encourage it sometimes with my clients because I'm like, you're anxious about making this decision or you're concerned about what's going to happen because you're thinking the absolute worst. So let's take it
Yeah.
there. What is the absolute worst thing that could happen if you went down this road?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now that we have ended up with you on the street, destitute in a hole, do you really feel like where that's going to go if you say no to not speaking at this event?
Right. Like, is it actually, is that realistic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
most of the time it's not even most of the time, all of the time it's like no. And it's like, okay, so now that we know that this is never going to end as poorly as you think it will, let's dial it back, right? And let's
Yeah.
talk about how you want it to go, realistically how it could go, and are you okay with that? And can you make peace with that? And so, yeah, sometimes I'm just like, let's write out the catastrophe since you're so hell bent on thinking so, so badly about it. Let's talk about it. Let's get that energy out of your system so that you can see it from a logical standpoint that whatever that is isn't going to happen. And now we can dial back into, all right, this is what we're actually going to do. And it's not going to ruin my life if I say no.
Yeah. Most people don't know that word, the catastrophizing. It's
Mm.
really common for anyone with anxiety
Mhm.
when you're thinking that something like terrible is going to happen. You go to like the absolute worst
Yeah.
conclusion.
Yeah.
Like after my daughter was born, like my husband, obviously we weren't getting a lot of sleep because that's what happens after you have a baby.
Yeah.
And like, um, and he went to go like play video games with people. I'm like, oh my gosh, he didn't get enough sleep. He's going to be super impatient. He's going to get in a fight and he's going to like end up punching someone and like getting in jail. Like so extreme. And my husband is so chill. Like,
This
and
would have
so
never
I,
happened.
like I literally just like connected dots that like didn't even make sense
Yeah.
because like I know him,
Yeah.
and even if he didn't get a lot of sleep, he's
Yeah.
a pretty chill guy.
You're like, he's
And
gonna Hulk out on
so
everyone. And
yeah,
he's never hulked out
exactly.
ever.
And so so like yeah, if you actually like say it out loud, then you
Yeah.
start to realize like, oh, that's really like not realistic. That's
Yeah.
not probably what's gonna happen.
Yeah. And sometimes it helps to speak it. Say
It
it.
does.
Like, all right, boo, I love you, but do you understand how foolish you sound now? Because you said that out loud.
Yep. Yep.
And sometimes that just helps. Just getting, again, everything is energy. So get it out of your body. If you have to speak it to make it feel like, you know, and that's just an excellent way for you to recognize people pleasing. It's just like, this doesn't feel good. What's going to happen if I don't do the thing? Okay, it's not that bad. Then I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, agreed. One of my favorite places in the world is LinkedIn. Obviously, over here. But one of the reasons I love it so much is because there's so many people supporting each other. Like
Mm,
especially since COVID,
yeah.
those I'm looking for a job posts,
Mm,
holy crap.
yeah.
Like thousands upon thousands of reposts and reactions, like so much
Yeah.
energy, like because so many people have been in that boat, right?
Yeah.
Unemployment over the past 4 years, that people just are more supportive of each other.
Yeah.
And like if you're an entrepreneur too, like we're all in the same boat. We all understand what it's like to, have the income ebb and flow,
Mhm.
to have that emotional roller coaster happening sometimes too,
Yeah.
as a result of all of that. And I love being on LinkedIn to find those people because so
Mhm.
many people are in the same boat as you.
Yeah.
And so, one of my favorite messages to send out to people when they engage with my content, for example, I'll say, "Thank you so much for engaging with whatever it was. My recent post on XYZ. I'm a firm believer that when women support women, we all win." And
Yeah.
depending on like their response to that, and usually most people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm all for like supporting each other."
Yeah.
Then that tells me a lot about what they're they look for in their relationships,
Yeah.
and as a result they usually treat people in the same way
Yeah.
that what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So knowing what it is that you really want out of a relationship and start recognizing those green flags and red flags early on makes a gigantic difference in the energy that you're giving and receiving on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
It's especially important when you're talking about trying to find your people,
Mhm.
because your people aren't going to base, like, the people that are supposed to be in your life aren't going to base your value or your worth on any kind of, well, what can they do for me? How can they benefit me? your value and your worth won't be tied to any kind of reciprocity, right? It's not like, well, she only shows up for me 3 times out of, and I show up for her 4 times, or, I got her lunch this time, so she owes me dinner next time. Like, and that's how you can recognize, like, in real life, outside of just like we're commenting, and you don't want people like that in your any kind of online community, because again, everything everything is energy. So if you scroll past somebody's stuff that you don't agree with, you're like, how did you get in my feed? But taking some of these examples for real life and being like, I asked this person to do me a favor, and now they've been kind of twiddling their thumbs asking me when I'm going to repay the favor. Red flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we went to the movies and I forgot, something, my friend picked it up for me. And I'm like, hey, let me get you. And they're like, nah, I'm good. Like, you're okay. I've got it. Green flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, what are those feelings? What is it that you want? When you think about that person it is that you're inviting into your life, what's the easiness feel like? Take a look at the relationships that you have right now. What do you hate? Because not all relationships are perfect, but like, what do you not like about some of the relationships that you're in right now? And why do you believe that you're not worthy of more than that?
Right.
Why do you believe that this is as good as it can be? Do you think social media can be a wide range of people who just make things up for likes, but there are some people out there who actually really like the life that they're living. Like, how do you get that for yourself? Well, first of all, you have to believe that you're worth more than you have now. Okay. And when you start believing that you're worthy of these relationships, that's when these relationships begin to find you, because you're not putting off of this like pick me energy, which goes hand in hand with your people pleasing. Understanding your power and your value, and understanding that you are amazing just because you are, and standing in that, that's when people are like, ooh, who's she?
Right.
So.
I used to be super desperate for connection and relationships with other women. And I realized that because I'm a person that like immediately recognizes if like, there's some event going on or whatever, that like if someone's lonely, if someone is, not feeling included, I just automatically I can see it. And but so frequently those people are just like takers, whether they intend to or not. And so I've chosen to be a little bit more patient with life and not just gravitate towards those people, but like take a little bit more time, be patient with like the world revealing the right people to me, and also putting myself in more situations where I can meet more people, being a little bit more vulnerable, so I have more options than just what happens to come my way. And so I recently got a new friend who is absolutely amazing, and she told me that her daughters weren't comfortable playing with my daughter again. Like she's okay trying again, but because my daughter has poor social skills because of her autism. And like she even tried to explain to her daughters, like, oh, well, she has autism, like she's just not really good with like sharing or taking turns or listening to other people. And so I told her, like, hey, are we still on for our play date on Wednesday? And she's like, oh, I didn't even know like we were planning on another one, and just told me honestly like what her girls said. And she's like, but I loved our conversation. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like this is exactly what I want from relationships. Honesty and transparency and respectful communication. Like I am fangirling over this woman. She's so amazing. I mean, it's so rare to find like I find a lot of women on LinkedIn who are like this, like you, Alexis, but like women in the real world who like live near me. And having those people who are honest and respectful and transparent, like drastically decreases my level of anxiety around the situation because there's no ambiguity. And ambiguous relationships suck so much of our energy. Like if you constantly have to wonder what that emoji meant,
Right?
like, then
You
it's
mad at me because you put a thumbs up?
yeah, like if you don't know where you stand in relationships, then it's just gonna suck all your energy. When
Yeah,
you know, when both parties know, like, okay, we don't like each other, that zaps less energy than an ambiguous relationship
yeah,
because you both know where you stand.
yeah.
Whereas if there's like you're constantly wondering, then it's just like draining
It
so
is.
much.
It
So I
is.
loved that she was honest with me, you know, willing to try again and just like super respectful. She's an amazing mom.
Yeah.
It was just like it felt so good and fulfilling
Yeah.
to get receive that kind of communication and
Yeah.
respect. Like that is a huge part of my love language is just transparency. And a
Yeah.
lot of them, that's not like one of the labeled love languages, but for me, it's huge because
It's
it
enough.
decreases my
Yeah.
anxiety.
I completely agree with you there. And it's there's something you can tell one you're growing when you're looking forward to relationships like that where people call you on your BS or they try to set things right with you because when you're younger you fear things like that because you're like,
Mhm,
well, what if somebody, well, now they're telling me they don't like me. Well, when you age a little bit, you're like, no, this person's being honest with me because they value me
mhm,
and they don't want me to live in Delulu land where I think everything is one way but they know it to be something different. And so the friend that I went on a cruise with her the week after I quit my job. I quit my job on Friday. We went on a cruise on Monday. And back in I have a highway driving anxiety right now. It came out of nowhere a few years ago and I struggle with it, especially on these California highways. And so me and her and another friend were going to go to SeaWorld over Christmas break. And we were struggling because it seemed like at one point that I was going to have to drive myself with my kids. And I was like, I'm just not going to go. And so I kind of started making excuses. I was like, oh no, like I have to go, I have to get back, da 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 da. And I was in the group text, and she texted me on the side, and she was like, "What's going on here?" I was
mhm,
like, "I don't want to drive," and she was like, "She's like, I will just get," because the other friend too. There's three of us. Two of us cannot be on these highways, and so it all kind of fell to her. And she was like, I'll just get us like a big 15 passenger van. She's like, let's just split it. She's like, and I'll drive. And she's like, you guys just help with the kids and stuff. And I was like, she's like, I know there's something else going on here. And I was like, yeah, I just don't want to do it. And she was like, no, we're going to figure this out.
I love
And
that.
so she like, she held me accountable and she was like, I'm not going to let you back out on this because you don't want to drive. She's like, we'll figure it out.
Mhm,
And but her son is also autistic and he really adores my son, but my son is running out of kind of patience with him. So
mhm,
when we all went to see Wonka together, he asked to sit with his sisters. And while the movie was going on, she was like, did Avery really want to sit with his sisters or he just like didn't want to sit with my son? And I was like, he really just didn't want to sit with your son. And that didn't hurt our friendship.
mhm.
And that's like, of course you want relationships where you guys get along immaculately, your kids get along immaculately, like of course you want
Right.
things. But me and her saw this movie with the kids before we went on this cruise together. We spent a whole week together. It was amazing. Like we're just really great friends. But it was like being able to have that conversation and being able to say, no, my son is kind of setting a boundary. He doesn't want this right now. And not having to feel like I have to tiptoe around this fact or I have to force my son to be uncomfortable for the sake of maintaining a friendship with someone else.
Mhm.
It's amazing. And you should look forward to relationships like that because they're fantastic. And me and her, we just booked another cruise next January for it's a couples trip. And I'm like, are we going? And we like shared confirmation together. And I'm like, yes, now we're traveling again. It's amazing.
I love it. That's amazing. That's such a good story too. Yeah, we want those types of relationships where people will honor our boundaries and help us like respect ourselves.
Yeah.
I was reading this article yesterday, the day before, about things that suck joy out of our lives.
Mm.
And one of them was don't expect other people to respect you more than you're respecting yourself.
Mm.
And I
Ooh.
was like, oh, wow. Like, how am I disrespecting myself?
Mm.
Like, what am I doing that I would never ever tell another person to not do or to do. Like, I
Yeah.
stay up way too late. Like, I would never tell a person like, yeah, don't get enough sleep. Like,
Right.
or or like, you shouldn't exercise, like, because I spend hours and hours, at the computer. Or like, you should just keep working and working and never take a break,
Yeah.
right? Like, we would
Never tell
never
somebody
tell
to do
another person. And so, like, think about that sometimes. Like, what is it that you're doing that you would never ever do to someone else, or like maybe you're talking to yourself in your head in a certain way,
Yeah.
um, and just give yourself a little bit more grace,
Yeah.
and it'll also help you give other people more grace too.
Yeah. And I think it ties also into, some people like to be a lot like, oh, God is testing me or the universe is testing me. And it's like, what if the universe isn't testing you? They're just asking you to be the person you already say that you are. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you say you're this person who, like how I used to in my Effortless Entrepreneur program, it's the 15-hour work week. It's like, okay, are you actually working 15 hours a week, or are you just telling people how to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you actually the person that you say that you are? And, that's another way that you invite people into your life through your energy that you don't really want there, because you're not being the person that you say that you are. And people can recognize that from a mile away. So if you're someone who runs 10 miles a week and you're telling other people to run 10 miles a week, but you're not,
Yeah.
that's going to
Agreed.
be obvious.
Yeah. And I like do the things that I teach, but those things that I just listed, like, I don't necessarily like constantly tell people like, go exercise, make sure
Yeah,
you're like taking breaks and things like that. But I talk about self-care all the time. That
yeah,
just looks different for every person.
for sure.
And my self-care needs to look like going to bed earlier, and taking more frequent breaks and exercising. And so, just because like, I'm just trying to be healthier generally.
Yeah.
And so, recognizing like those ways that I'm disrespecting myself and my needs, like, that will help you in the process of recognizing like, wait, how else are other people doing that towards
Mm,
me? When
yeah.
you start to respect yourself a ton, then
Hmm.
it's easier to recognize when other people are not respecting you too. So
Yeah.
that's a really good step as well.
Yeah. And when you respect yourself, you give off that energy to people, and people will be like, oh, she don't play.
Mhm.
Here for a good time and a long time. Like, you can tell. And people might be a little bit slow on the surface level sometimes, but the unconscious or the subconscious, they can read you, and they can tell what they can get away with if you're not, you know, holding yourself up and proving to people that you don't play about yourself the way that you don't want other people to play about you.
Yeah, agreed. I know we only have a couple more minutes, but I would love your opinion on how to set boundaries, how you teach your clients to set boundaries when they're feeling that guilt or fear, or how to do it with less guilt or fear.
Yeah. So, one of the ways that I really like to help my clients is through kind of journaling it out. Because again, I've said it like 14 times, everything is energy. So, guilt and fear are these negative energies that are residing inside of you. You've got to get them out. And a good way to do that is through journaling. So, if you're trying to set a boundary someone and you're trying to release yourself of this guilt or this fear, you need to ask yourself why you're feeling that guilt or fear in the first place, right? So, it's like, and ask yourself, why do I believe that I am not worthy of whatever this is that I'm trying to accomplish? Because guilt is directly tied to your value as far as self-worth goes. So you feel guilty because you don't think that you're worthy of having this thing, or you feel that it's contingent upon having something else or the absence of something else. And so asking yourself, why do I feel this guilt? Where do I feel it in my body when I'm feeling it? Am I feeling it in my chest? Am I feeling it like, am I clenching my fist? Where am I feeling it? How can I kind of relax that feeling? Why do I believe that I'm not worthy of having this thing that I want? Or fear, asking yourself, again, you can kind of take it all the way to the catastrophe, right? What am I worried about? Right? Why do I feel like this is going to always turn into the worst possible outcome? So really asking, you've got to ask yourself why. I think this is a quintessential question that people overlook for everything. You can ask yourself more complicated questions, or you can always just bring it back to the why. Why do I feel guilty doing this? Why do I feel fear doing this? And one of the things that I cover in side of my new mastermind is we go to kind of that subconscious or unconscious level and locate that first memory that you have of this fear of rejection or this fear of failure, this obligation to please others. We locate that memory and we bring it to the conscious level so that we can release it.
Yeah.
Because your subconscious and your unconscious work differently than your logical mind. And so if you need help really trying to figure out why you feel that way, then a program like mine would work well for you. But you've got to ask yourself why you feel this way first before you can actually move forward in making the decision. Because understanding that will help you be like, I don't know why I feel like I'm not worthy of this. You know what? No, I'm not going to do that no more. But avoiding that question entirely and avoiding doing the inner work before you set the boundary is going to make the boundary, it's going to be a shaky foundation. You got to ask yourself why first. Look inward first.
Yeah. So then when you are triggered and you can work through that and say, like, the only reason I'm feeling this is because my brain is telling me a similar thing that it did in this other traumatic experience. Like, separate yourself, recognize that I can make a different decision than what my brain might be telling me I should do to keep myself safe, for example.
Separate or honor yourself. Say, I recognize that this happened and I'm grateful to my body for protecting me from or wanting to do this, but I'm safe now. And it's okay for me to want more. It's okay for me to say no. It's okay for me to choose something different. And I'm perfectly safe making that decision. So it can be either or, depending on what your jellies are feeling that day.
Agreed. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me, Alexis. You are amazing and fantastic. And I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. I know we had to delay a couple different times, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. For anyone who didn't get to watch this live, if you want any questions answered, just pop them in the comments for this post or DM either of us, and we are happy to answer any questions. For those of you who may be looking for a career coach, wanting to accelerate your job search, wanting to get what you really want out of your career, achieve that dream job, feel free to reach out. I am offering free career strategy calls right now for the month of March. So if that's something that you are interested in, go ahead and comment with the word career and I will reach out to you so we can schedule. Alexis, is there anything you want to share before we part?
Yeah, if you have any other questions about how you can work with me, I mentioned briefly my mastermind. I'm opening that up to my email list first in a few weeks. If you are an eldest or an only daughter who struggles with choosing yourself and choosing your happiness and putting yourself first and literally just telling people no, then this is a program that you want to be in. Or if for the other side of the work that I do, if you are brand new in your business or you're struggling to get to those consistent income months and you want to learn how to do that on 15 hours a week, I do that inside of my Effortless Entrepreneur program. Just always send me a DM. I love having chats and getting to know people and serving you in the best way that you deserve to be served.
Awesome. Thank you so much once again for joining me, Alexis. And thank you for everyone who joined us live. We will see you on LinkedIn. Bye, everyone.
Bye.